Thank you everyone for joining. Today I was telling Patrick and Michael I'm maybe overly excited about this topic, and I really appreciate they jumping in to do it on a very short notice. But I started off my career in Ottawa during the .com, which is a telecom industry town, and I worked in the Mitel building, which is Mike and Terry's Lawnmowers. That's how I think about them. It's a lawnmower company, but they're one of the largest telephony companies out there. And where I learned about partnerships in the channel was actually through watching the sales and marketing teams like drive so many deals through like channel distribution. And that's where I learned how powerful it can be. And then when I started working in SaaS, I was immediately hit my head on the wall because we don't have the channel that Telecom has. So first, thank you, Greg Plum, who's one of our community leaders. He recruited two extremely luminary individuals in the Telecom channel. And I'd like to introduce them and have them introduce themselves. So first, I'll start with Michael at Mobile Solutions. Can you tell me, introduce yourself and tell us about Mobile Solutions?
Yeah, Michael Sterl, president at Mobile Solutions, also a operating partner with a private equity firm called Periscope Equity out of Chicago. Mobile Solutions is focused on managed mobility. So think, how do we optimize, how do we secure, and how do we manage mobility devices, smartphones, tablets, and even now in today's day and age, laptops. We support US and Canada, and we really are split between a direct sales rep approach as well as the channel. And it's about 50-50 approach there. So excited to have this conversation with Patrick about this as well.
And Patrick, please introduce yourself. You're one of the top master agents in the country. So I'd love to hear how you describe yourself to this crowd.
No, thanks a lot for having me here today. It's an absolute pleasure. Again, my name is Patrick Oborn. I'm one of the co-founders of Telarus. We started this business in 2002, so we're coming up on 18, so we're old enough to vote now, so that's very exciting. We got our driver's license a couple years ago, and really we really hit our stride since then. We're what we call a master agent. Another word for master agent is technology services distributor. So much like the Ingram and the Tech Datas and those type of folks, how they warehouse hardware components, routers, switches, all that fun stuff. Telarus really warehouses products that can be sold as a service that don't involve anything tangible. What I mean by that are things like Amazon Web Services, Office 365, even your internet connection that you pay a monthly bill for. So basically anything that's telecom or infrastructure related with business, we have contracts with them. We have contracts with over 250 major providers worldwide. We have offices in the United States, Sydney, Australia, Toronto, Canada, and London in the UK. And different companies that we sell in those different markets, but really the model is the same. The model is we support people with contracts, we support people with expertise, and we support people with residual income support so that our people can go in and they can broker this service and they're not involved in the billing element. And we'll talk more about this in a second. But basically the premise is our consultants, we have over 5,000 1099s that work and source through us around the world. And as they source and recommend these products, the CenturyLinks, Verizon's, AT&T's, Rogers, these guys go in and they build a client, and then we get a percentage of that payment every month forever. And then we take the lion's share of that payment and then make sure that the agent that sold the deal gets paid, and we get a small cut of that. Basically, it's the fee for using the community, our community of contracts, our community of experts. And so really helping our partners have access to all of the products that their customers are going to need, including SaaS products, is really what we're all about. And enablement and keeping track of people's money. So we're kind of part engineer, we're kind of part accounting firm, we're kind of part marketing firm to help our partners with marketing ideas and everything else to get customers. So there's a lot there to unpack, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little more detail in this forum. But so thanks for having me, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, this is the thing. So master agency is a kind of a yesterday, today, and tomorrow story. It's because it's been around for a long time. I mean, there are two major channels that are subscription-based, which one is telecom, and the other one is insurance. And telephony, I think, has the most from relevancy to the cloud software industry because you've been selling B2B products forever, and it's been quite developed. And the fact that you have 5,000, active channel partners. By the way, when people say they have 5,000 channel partners in SaaS, they mean they have 200 active channel partners and 4,800 people with logos on their site. That's what they mean. But you mean you're at 5,000 people actually billing through to customers. Like, it is a significant channel. That's a part of the yesterday story because telephony has been around forever. So today's story, because you are adapting to bring in things like Office 365 and AWS, and it's a tomorrow story because you're one of, like, there's a future where more and more software products are going to be sold through the master agent channel. And so this is a Q&A. This is an AMA. Ask me anything. I have a bunch of questions as your talk show host, but I'm going to say to the attendees, fire away your questions, and really don't think of it just as telecom. It's the entire model of how to build out an effective subscription channel that these Patrick and Michael know both sides of it. Patrick from the reseller side and Michael from the software vendor point of view going through that channel. So any of your questions about channel marketing, even if you're not in the telecom channel, they have a lot of experience with how that even works. So with that, I'm going to kick it off just to break the ice. But I think a lot of people probably don't even understand how the telecom channel works. And, Patrick, you're the expert. So, what does that even mean? Like I just said, like it's the most developed, you have 5,000 active people, how does telecom actually go to market through channel partners? Like what is a master agent? Like that concept probably blows people's minds who are like struggling to even get like 10 marketing agencies around their product. You are one seller, but you have 5,000 underneath you. Explain the model.
So the model basically works like this. If I am selling direct for a company, I've got a few things I've got to do. Number one, I've got to hit my sales quota to keep my job, right? But if I do hit my sales quota, I get a bonus, plus I get my salary, plus I get benefits. On the agency side, you get zero salary, you get zero benefits, but you do get a piece of your customer's invoice forever. And I'm a trained electrical engineer. I designed integrated circuits. I was very heavy on the engineering side. And when I discovered this model that you could make a sell once and get paid forever, I literally quit my job as an engineer. I had a master's in engineering. I published in IEEE journal several times for circuit design, digital analog converters, different things that I built for the government that I can't talk about, just kidding. But this model, it blew my mind that I could sell an internet circuit and every month a customer paid their bill to the ISP, boom, money for me. And so this is something that really caught my attention. But the problem is when people learn about this, like, if they ever have the thought, man, if I could just get paid a cut of all the things I've ever sold and just get off of that salary and everything, man, I would be making a ton of money. I've made so much money for my boss. I've made so much money for the company I work for. I've closed these enterprise deals and I got a big bonus and now nothing. Now, what do I get? I get quota for next month, right? And so if people have those type of thoughts, a master agent is where you want to go, because if you were to, call Rogers or Telus or Comcast or Spectrum and raise your hand and say, I want to sell for you, they're going to say, that's great. Talk to one of our master agents. It doesn't make sense for these service providers, especially the large ones, to deal with thousands of people, because when you have a residual product, it's kind of like a marriage in a lot of ways, where it's not just day one, it's year 1, year 2, year 5. If there's problems or there's questions, concerns, things that come up, all of those questions and concerns, they funnel up through the master agent, and we have the capability to either resolve them, to go into the provider systems ourselves and resolve them, or to call our higher ups and get those fixed. And on the supplier side, they'd much rather receive one phone call, even if it's every day, but they'd rather deal with a master agent so that they can fix all of those problems than deal with 5,000 trouble tickets, all coming one per month from everybody. And so basically it's a way to funnel distribution in a way that we can add value in that mid-tier. Now, of course, service providers have dedicated sales teams for your extreme, Fortune 100 accounts, the ones that have lots of attention, everything else. They also have call centers, billboards, pay-per-clicks, landing pages with call centers that are taking the SMB orders because they want to crank through those orders fast. But there's this big area in the middle called the mid-market or even the enterprise mid-market, where it doesn't make sense to advertise directly to those folks and take a phone call because a lot of those customers will not respond to advertising in that way. And also the high-end sales reps, it doesn't make sense to pay those big salaries and those big bonuses to hunt smaller fish in the pond. And so the channel has really been tasked with getting in there and getting in front of those customers. And so master agents like Telarus, not only do we give access to a broad array of and when I say broad array, over 250. So every major telco, we're building a SaaS portfolio. In fact, on our website, checklist.telarus.com, we've actually categorized 8, we call them swim lanes, 8 funnels or silos of technology that almost every customer, whether it's mid-market, enterprise, SMB, 8 silos of infrastructure that they consume, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's mobility, and the stuff that Michael works on, whether it's contact center as a service, unified communications, network, all of these things are things that all the companies need. And in today's marketplace, we see a lot of people that want to provide value through an invoice. And that's great. So you can occupy a swim lane or maybe a piece of a swim lane, but there's all these different swim lanes next to you. And what we're seeing today in today's marketplace is those swim lanes are kind of blurring. And so not only in the past, you really didn't have to worry about the other swim lanes. Like you could be the phone system guy and you did the phone system guy. Someone else did the internet circuits. Someone else did their Microsoft. Someone else did their cybersecurity. You didn't have to worry about it because you stayed in your swim lane and you were good. The thing is now is these swim lanes are blurring. So if you're just focusing on cybersecurity, for example, you run the risk that somebody coming in, helping them with their Microsoft or Azure or their network or their phone system or their customer experience through their contact center, those people are going to start asking questions like, hey, what are you doing for your network? And not only are the people in this business starting to get into all of these different areas, largely with the help of master agents, but you're also seeing the technologies that people are buying, like SaaS. Like, what's the big thing about SaaS? Well, you want to get the SaaS as close to the digital edge to the customer as possible so the response time and the latency is low. So how do you push that digital edge closer to the customer? Well, you have companies like Equinix that have created an app fabric. And so now we're talking data center, and now we have connectivity, direct connectivity into Equinix so that we can make those handoffs and those delays faster to improve the performance of the SaaS. So it's like a car. You can't just sell tires. You can't just sell transmissions. More and more people, you need to figure out how to sell a car. And so master agents are really the one place that you can go to not only get the products, but we also staff with engineering resources in those different areas so that if it's something not in your swim lane, it's okay. We can go in and we can create the value behind that to help you sell the entire car and not just the transmission.
Okay, well, this gets to the meat of it, I think, what the audience is interested in. Patrick, I want your perspective on this. And I know Michael has an entire strategy around this as well. So if I'm a new if I'm a new SaaS product, and I'm looking at this, gargantuan channel, I talk to a lot of Cloud Software Association members, of course, all the time. And this level of people are intimidated and confused. I mean, being Rogers or Telarus or Comcast or AT&T is one thing, or AWS is one thing. Right, and that's why they have to go through master agents because you just can't deal with the demand. But if you are trying to break into as a product, you don't have necessarily a channel demand. How do these vendors approach you and sell through you in a way that makes sense? Like how do they add it to your mix? What is the story of how new software products come to market through you?
That's a great question. So internally, like I said, we deal with 5,000 people worldwide that are calling us and putting in orders and getting quotes and everything else. Each one of those people, they occupy a specific space. Some people are really heavy on the network. Some people are great at SaaS. Some people are great, used to run a contact center and are contact center experts. Telarus is really built to help people get into adjacent swim lanes. We have what are called vice presidents of business development. So we have a vice president of business development over cloud. and cloud applications. We have one that's over contact center, one that's over unified communications, one that's over network. And so we have training, and we have ways that we're trying to get people into these different mixes. So when a new vendor comes to us and says, hey, we want to be in the channel, help us. So number one, we have a vendor management team that basically has a checklist so they can onboard, whether they're getting into a tool that Telarus has built so that all of our agents can see where they're a good fit for what technologies. That's really one thing. We come in and we train our own in-house engineers to make sure they understand their solution, so that when they're having conversations with their partners, they're like, I know exactly the right fit for that. And then they bring in that new SaaS provider. And then last but not least, we have a category of people who, may be already in SaaS. And so that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. We'll immediately connect those agents, which again could be a small subset, with that provider, because we understand that their strength is a direct match with the product that vendor is bringing to us. So really, Telarus is a pretty sophisticated matchmaker. Not all of our partners are a good fit for all of our providers, and so really figuring out which ones are a good fit today, and which ones will be a good fit tomorrow once we can increase their education and also increase the confidence they have in speaking about that solution. If it's a totally different solution, or if it's an adjacent solution, the uptake is much faster for adjacent solutions than things that I've never even talked to my customers about. But the great thing about this model is relationships. And it's really funny talking about relationships in a world that's so techy, because we want it to be transactional. We want to just get on there and click and order a license and be done. But in this world, the broker model, it's really the relationships that went out, not the certifications, not all the bits and bytes. It's the relationships. So that when we call them trusted advisors, when our partners get into an account, they can hit the ball out of the park with their core specialty, but they also have enough trust built up that they can talk about all those different swim lanes and all those different products, and be able to recognize the opportunity inside all their accounts, and have the relationships in place that their customers will trust them when they say, hey, I have an expert, let me bring them in. And we can bring in a Telarus expert, again, one that's unbiased, that's not on the payroll of any particular company, and they can get in there white labeled as the partner, have that conversation, and then we can bring in the right solutions. And so solution providers love us and hate us. They can come in and give us a new product, but at the end of the day, we survive, we exist, because us and our downline sub-agent partners are doing the things and doing right by their clients. Like, we're not pushing the highest commission product. We're not trying to win some contest or whatever. We always do right by the client and kind of let the chips fall where they may, and things work out. So I hope that in a roundabout way answered your question, Samir.
Well, it does. I will go to Michael in a second about his perspective, because you gave the usual answer people say when working with new vendors, when you're in the channel. It's like, yeah, if it's great, we talk to, whatever. Breaking in as a new vendor is often a lot harder than just having a nice dinner with you, which is now impossible thanks to the virus. So Michael, you were a vendor. You're trying to break into this channel. At some point, the company had $0 of revenue, and now you're doing much better than that. So what was the journey? I mean, it's not as simple as, just having a really nice conversation with, the Patricks of the world. So how did it, what does it take from your point of view? What's the reality?
Yeah, I think one, it's difficult, right? Especially in the commodity side of the technology, when you think about voice services or internet services. My view is always a two-pronged approach, and both actually start with a relationship, to Patrick's point. I always want to know what the master agent in this ecosystem is focused on. What's the roadmap for technology? What's the industry roadmap for technology, so I can better understand how to position, whether I'm with Mobile Solutions or other companies that are in the market. The two-pronged approach, though, to me is you have to start the master agent. You have to create awareness. This is regular marketing. If we think about it, it's who am I? What's the brand? What are we selling? What's the solution? What's the problem we solve? So you're hitting the master agent on that education. But if you think about it, it's really the bottom-up scenario where if we can educate the partner, and that partner in this world is IT VARs, managed service providers, your traditional telecom agent. That education at that layer is creating awareness, working with them on opportunities, maybe even creating a lead gen offer with them. If we continue to go bottom up and top down, eventually what happens is, and Patrick may agree or disagree, but the fast lane is you get a deal, that deal's sold, master agent then says, okay, we have a deal sold, let's bring in that service provider. And that ultimately is the win for all of us. But it's not easy. It's not easy in regards to, okay, who do you look to partner with? What's the profile I'm really looking for in, and whether it's a master agent or some sort of technology distributor. But I think it really does come to what is my solution? Do I know my competition? Do I know how to differentiate in the market? And can I help that master agent ultimately grow revenue? That, at the end of the day, is what they're focused on. And in our world, technology generally drives that. And technology is what is the end customer and business buying. And ultimately, that's how we're coming together. The other side of that is, if I'm coming into the master agent or the partner community, is, am I going to compete with them? And so I think Patrick had listed, the direct sales rep side of this. And when you think about it, if you're only direct sales, now you're creating competition, and partners don't like the competition. And so we have to be smarter about, okay, we're going to have a channel program, and then we're going to have a direct team, but we're going to use that direct team to set up teaming or support with the channel, and ultimately become a stronger force in the market. But it's I'll say it's an uphill battle. It really is. It's challenging. It's good to be strategic. It's good to be different. And I think a lot of times the master agent community just has so much going on that it's almost, how do you get their attention? And sometimes you pull favors, and pull favors aren't like the dinner side. It's more like, hey, let me educate you, let me train you, let me tell you what's happening. And it's the Wayne Gretzky, how do we skate to where the puck's going? And if you can design that model to educate and train master agent on where they need to go, how your product or platform or solution can get them there, you ultimately have a win-win, and a pretty smooth process, though still takes time, right? Because what we just talked about is the relationship and the contract or the agreement. Now we have to go to the next layer. How do we educate the masses? How do we, as Patrick mentioned 5,000, you mentioned 200 are active. That's the reality of the service provider. We're not all aligned with every sub-agent or channel partner that's out there. So now we have to start going through the noise. How do we navigate who's the right partner? And I would say this is where most service providers fail, whether you're a telecom service provider or a SaaS model. They don't know the ideal partner that should be selling their service. And there's a lot of time spent, a lot of time wasted on trying to cover the masses, where I look at it and say, okay, how do we be strategic? How do we be strategic with what technology are they already selling? So now you have an industry or a technology focus. What industry are they selling into? Now you have an industry focus. And how do we align with one of those in order to be successful long-term? So that would be my view on kind of where that market is, coming from the service provider, working with master agents for 17 years. I've seen both the good and bad, but ultimately I think it comes down to the number one thing is the relationship once you're in there.
This is actually, there's a lot of questions that we could address actually of that conversation, but there's a lot of Q&A. So and because we put our link in the Slack, there's a lot of Noah Greens here, like being John Malkovich. So if you're asked a question and your name happens to be Noah Green, please put your actual name in the question so we can cite you. Otherwise, I'm going to call you all Noah Green. Okay, so here's a good question actually from Jeff Matten, because he told me how to pronounce his name. So Jeff is great. So he's been in he worked at in like the really like mainstream industry, like a Keep Truckin' actually, and so he understands like the real channel of actual get outside like Silicon Valley. His question though relates to this, how do you align with the master agency? What are they doing? How do you set it up? And it goes for both of you, Patrick and Michael. So I'll go with you, Michael, because you have the mic. So from your point of view, you have your direct sales team you mentioned. The question he has is what do agents do in the initial sale and then the renewal to support the customer and earn that payment forever? And are they involved after initial sale, or they turn over the lead to let the vendor do the work? But I think you have to shape yourself to the master agency channel. So what is, you mean, you've been successful doing this. So what is the right answer? Like, how should you actually set them up so that they're creating value?
That's a good one. And I'll stir the pot a little bit for Patrick, just because this will be good for him on his answer. One, there's no right answer. So that's the first thing. If we actually look at the design and almost the pillars of go-to-market, partner profile or partner type are referral. I don't want anything to do with it. I just know Joe wants services. I'm going to throw it over the table. Technology, service distributors or master agents, like what Telarus is doing. And then you have your direct sales, and then you have a powered by, those that want to buy and then resell. So in the master agent side, with the sub-agent or partner underneath them, I think we see all different sizes of that. We see the one that brings us a deal, says, hey, I don't really understand the technology. I want to leverage your team to be the subject matter expert. Help me sell it. And then we pay them on it. We then have the partner that says, hey, I pretty much have the customer at the goal line. I need you to help fine tune a couple things in order to close deal. And we come in and we're really hands off almost to the end, to the contract. I think the breakdown historically is partners want to be paid the entire time they're a customer. Not all partners do a good job of working on renewal of a customer. And I'm going to say this, and I asked a partner one time, I said, I don't understand. If you look at
understatement, Michael, it's an understatement.
Total understatement. But what I did is I broke it down. I said, listen, if you think of the process, you're prospecting, you acquire, you nurture, you grow every customer. That's the ideal model. The historical partner didn't nurture or grow unless it was reactive. Customer raised hand and said, I want something. And it really was starting to bother me from why are we wasting so much time on the front end when we already acquire a customer? Let's just continue to enable the rest of the tech stack. So I called a few partners up and I said, you have to tell me why. Well, they don't like they didn't get the energy from the farming of the customer or the nurture. They got the energy from hunting or the prospecting and the acquire. And I took a step back and I'm going, oh my gosh, now this makes sense. So what we have to just accept, right or wrong, because the industry's kind of built the model and kind of told us what we need to do, is for the most part, they're going to acquire the customer with us. And then we have to figure out how to take the opportunity, nurture and grow them, but be in communication with the partner, which is fine because we have a customer success team that can do that. But that style, that development, that process, that plan doesn't fit for everybody that's out there. Your IBMs, your Salesforce.coms, your Oracles, they don't look at it that way. So we unfortunately have accepted that. I don't personally agree with it. And the reality is I'm using it because that's what we're in from a channel, from an industry perspective.
There's no perfect answer, but Patrick, I love to hear from your side of the table because, I mean, you opened this actually with a story about how people want to have like their trusted advisor directly. And by the way, not to corner you about my story. I mean, I have my own startup AppBind, which is around channel building and trying to solve a lot of the issues here. I'm talking to a lot of investors right now, and they just don't understand, well, why don't customers buy direct? Well, customers don't buy direct. Like most customers in the world buy technology through a trusted service provider, like close to them, your consultants, because they need someone they can see and like talk to and understand. They're gonna come into the office and see what's going on. So from your point of view, why do you, I mean, this is what got you excited. Put it the hard way. Why should I keep paying you residuals? Why should I pay you renewals for the life of the contract? Yeah, I got the customer. We're good. Like what is it? What's the value you guys are creating through the lifetime of that customer?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I'm personally gratified that this topic came up because one of the ways that Telarus has evolved is just by listening to the needs not only of the clients and the agents, but also the needs of the vendors. And we're still understanding the model and everything else, and we understand that with the residual commission comes the inherent built-in assumption or expectation that some sort of level of customer service is going to be provided by the agent, by the trusted advisor. They're not going to sell it and forget it. even though to Michael's point, a lot of them do that. So when we're talking to our channel community, one of the questions we ask when we're onboarding is, what is your customer service plan? Some people say, I don't have a plan. I'm going to sell it and we'll figure it out. And the churn's going to happen, and whatever customers I lose, but some are going to stick too. So I'm just going to play the odds, right? I'm just going to roll the dice. Other people come in and say, no, one of the values I provide is that I've got this back office of 3 girls, and they are on calls with customers every month. They're making sure their bills are right. They're doing moves, adds, changes. They're modifying accounts. They're talking about, in some cases, new technologies like maybe SD-WAN. Might be a good time to upgrade SD-WAN and get rid of the MPLS, and just questions about technology upgrade questions. And then last but not least, we looked at our partner community to try to figure out which ones were actually doing this work that was expected of them. And 80% of them, Michael, you'll be surprised, 80% of them said, we do that work. And when we looked and surveyed customers, we found out that 80% of them did not do the work, 20% of them did the work. And so this industry is funny because we love each other and we trust each other, but we lie to each other a lot. And that's, I don't know if it's, we want to look big to have bigger negotiating leverage or what it is, but people often, I'm not going to say lie, I'm going to say maybe embellish a little bit. And so we saw that as an opportunity for us as a master agent to step in and fill that vacuum. And so what we did is we started hiring account managers, people that are farmers, people who Windstream let go, AT&T let go, CenturyLink let go. Like, there's a lot of turnover in these companies, and they're jettisoning talent, not based on capability. They're doing it based on tenure, which is like a governmental way to do it. Like, oh, he's been here 5 years. He's been here 1 year. The 1 year guy's gone. They don't know that the guy who's been there 1 year is a freaking all-star and leads their department in every measurable metric.
You're
So
not trying to tell me the telephone companies are mismanaged, are you, Patrick?
Oh no, never say that.
Okay.
But a lot of companies are like that. When COVID-19, like when the world changes on you and you've got to cut some costs, you have to decide as a company, who are you? Are you the tenure guy, or are you the performance type guy? So we're here to perform. I mean, our partners are our customers, and making sure they look good to the end user customer is our job. So creating this account management team, we do charge a few points of commission. So we pay a slightly reduced commission, and we take that delta and we pay the salaries of people here in Salt Lake and all around the country to sit in a white labeled format and call the customer as the partner. Hi, this is Becky, and I'm from Michael Sterl's mobile phone company, and I'm just noticing that your bill looks a little off. Can I help you with that? And then we do the renewals and everything else. And so one of the things that Telarus says is, are you going to do this work, or are you going to hire us to do it? Because the vendors expect us to do it. And we're not going to just leave them high and dry, because they're paying us a residual. And this model is beautiful. But if we take advantage of it, if we just take the money and run and put all the customer workload on them, they're going to start to ask themselves the questions, why do we even have these guys? Like, we have a referral program already. We don't need, guys dropping leads on us and getting a residual and then disappearing. And so we're very cognizant of that and sensitive to the vendor's needs and expectations. Another thing that I want to get into too is the front end of the sale and the way that the sales process should work. I mean, number one, a conversation around needs, and then the needs analysis should be with your master agent. It shouldn't be with the service provider saying, oh, I got a guy over in SaaS. Maybe he can answer the question, because you're throwing the sheep to the wolves too early, because those direct guys will get a hold of those accounts. And there's never been a direct rep ever that said, you know what, we're not really a good fit for this. Why don't you go call the other guy? Like, they will never say that. And that's why the trusted advisor is so valuable. It's like your attorney. Why do you hire an attorney? Because you don't want to go study, 1,000 cases of law to figure out if the law is on your side or not. You want someone who knows already, because they've been in the legal field, they've been trained, and they have experience to guide you in the right direction. And so once
you can pick amongst multiple vendors. We're talking about this. Some of the vendors get mad at you because you bring in other competitor products, because the customer is not the vendor. The customer is the customer, right?
Exactly. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, because when we get in, we can say, you know what, based on all of our experience, much like an attorney, these two vendors are going to be the good fit. There's 4 other ones that could be a good fit, but these two, based on our experience, will knock the ball out of the park for this customer. And then we bring those two vendors in and we do the deal registration process, which then opens those customers up to the vendor's direct sales reps. But we're okay by that point because we know it's going to be a good fit. And the customer, whichever way they go, is going to be in a good situation. Selling a solution that's not a good fit because overly zealous inside salespeople and everything else get a hold of it, that's the wrecking ball for our industry. Like that puts them in a technology that can't scale with their future needs and that doesn't integrate with the one CRM that they care about and everything else that happens. There's a lot of moving parts, and so having someone on the very front end to have an agnostic diagnosis before the vendor gets involved is good. And on the vendor side, they know that anything that Telarus has vetted is a good spend of their time. Otherwise, they spend a lot of time chasing leads, chasing ghosts, quite honestly. So we have the relationship and we vetted it. That's going to be a good investment for them to, maybe fly out and maybe do a demo with the customer, maybe, put some investment into that lead, as opposed to just being just a lead off the internet. And you don't really know.
Well, that trust is what makes the sale, right? So here's a question that came from the Q&A related to this. Very simple question. This is one of the greens. So what do I don't know who this is. What do master agencies look for when considering a new supplier? Very simple question, but it's not like when you opened it up, it's like, well, you got to talk to us and happiness all around. That's not reality. Like you're like, what is the actual evaluation when you're thinking of a new vendor? Let's get like who's the last vendor you brought in and why? The best vendors that they come to us are referred by partners, and they come to us and they say, you know what, my last 3 customers have been asking about the service, and I'm looking at our SKU list or our inventory, and I don't see them in here. And if they don't buy from me, they're going to buy that product from somebody. And so what that does is it kind of lights a fire under us going, hey, there's demand, and customers are asking. So it's almost a pull through. When the customers start talking about a new technology, our agents then bring that to us and they say, hey, you're kind of my sourcing area. You need to go sign a contract with them. So we look, number one, for need. A need comes from the bottom up. The second thing we look for is things like exclusivity. Things where we can take extra time and do a webinar and do a video interview and do some awareness with our campaign. Exclusivity helps us a lot too, because it helps us differentiate from other distributors out there. So if there are certain things you can get at Telarus that you can't get at other places, we love that. And we will give those people MDF credits. We'll do a lot to make sure that they stay happy and they know that they can go to channel with one distributor and they don't need 2 or 3 to get access. And the last part of your question is, which is the last one we brought on? The name of the company is called Fortify. This is a wireless ISP. Kind of seems pretty easy, right? 2020, we should be able to have internet everywhere. Well, with COVID hitting and everyone going remote and everything else, what that did is it exposed a lot of inadequate broadband situations. People doing Zoom calls, and now their kids are on Zoom with their teachers and they're doing all this stuff. And now my internet is terrible. And again, people needing internet in lots of different locations. And we were noticing that wired internet was great for a lot of those situations. But when wired internet couldn't reach those people, wireless was the way to go. But people are afraid of wireless. They're afraid of the overages. And so we worked with Fortify to build a high utilization plan up to from the customer demand. So like Michael, turning over to you, how did this track to your story? I mean, you have a long history, so you know a lot of MAs and whatever, obviously from your career before you even built mobile solutions. But did you this trade-off between channel demand pulling and channel stuffing, which is people try to shove through the channel a product that people don't want yet, is a continuous thing that we talk about with partnership people. How did you guys start? Did you start by going direct and building demand from customers, or did you start by providing a service to the channel that they could use, or did you go immediately to channel and start pushing to customers? How did you guys get started?
I mean, I'll use the Telarus example. Mobile Solutions was not a vendor or supplier for them until 2020, and what we did there is obviously we were focused on the partners that were out there and trying to educate and train them But what I did is I took a step back to better understand what were they doing from a mobility, just general mobility. What did you have? And it's interesting because they were one of very few masters that already had a IBM contract. So think of like Mass 360 for security for endpoints. And then they had a Verizon wireless agreement that they were in the middle of upgrading or updating that was very unique. And so what I did is I sent Patrick a note and I said, hey, I know you have other mobility providers. I just give me like an hour to kind of just give you a brain dump of what I'm thinking. And it's not just my product. Here's a way to actually enable 2 other contracts or suppliers you have in your portfolio. And so I was fortunate enough to sit down with their team. And what we did is we took an approach, again, earlier to my conversation that we were having here, is you got to be unique. You can't just come in and say, sell me because I'm the greatest thing. Like that doesn't work for anybody. And unfortunately, Sunir, that happens. They come in with, I'm the coolest thing here and look how much money we raised and why, I can't believe you're not selling us. And what we did is we stepped in and said, listen, when you sell our solution, it's true. I'm the coolest thing on the block, right?
And real conversations I've had, I know.
Yeah. So what we did though is we took a strategic approach. And what I mean by that is we said, listen, we support IBM licenses. So your partners can sell them through you and we can actually be on the back end to manage the support side. You can implement our services, obviously make money there, but then you can leverage your Verizon contract on the back end to pay partners on activation services that were associated to Verizon. So we just came in with a different view and saying, here's how we actually become a partnership. And it's not just me presenting why me. And it ultimately was allowing us to then market to the channel partners also. If you think about mobility, there's really hasn't been money in it for the community, not a lot of money, so therefore they don't sell it. And we're finally in a position where partners can make money with mobility. And now you have that triangle of licenses plus activation plus service, and you can make money on all each one of those areas. That's a win-win for the partner community. And for us, fortunate or unfortunate, obviously with COVID, but fortunately with COVID, it really pushed or promoted mobile expense optimization and mobile security. So we kind of landed in this upfront partnership with then the market kind of driving us out into the partner community and ultimately to the end users. We'll
talk a little bit about the services side. Like what made it profitable? It was the services side, but like what was not happening? What happened? Why is it now profitable?
So the wireless carriers were, and Patrick can, obviously add to this, the wireless carriers didn't want to pay partners on the wireless plans. Like they would do everything they could, Verizon, AT&T example, to not pay them. And they made it very difficult, even if they were trying to pay, make a way for the payment, they made it difficult. So what happened is you create a barrier, you create a difficulty layer of stairs for me to get to the end result. What do? I find an alternative path at the end of the day. And what we looked at is, okay, well, there's a management layer that can be applied. So let's create a management layer that's monthly recurring that will pay you a percentage and at least give you a way to make money there. Then these other areas, IBM licenses or the Verizon example, let's make it so we're really enabling a mailbox money process for them. So what I mean by that is by default, when they sell us, we can actually give them another way to make an additional dollar behind the scenes. I hate the word spiff, so I'm not calling it a spiff, but it really is equal to what today's world would classify as a spiff. It's another alternative one-way payment that the partner can get that they didn't have access to traditionally. And so from the service side, we're managing with an upside for not only partner, but also customer.
Well, it's all about value add. Like software, the software providers, the carriers, the commoditized, they'll take most of the money. Margins are not very high, but if you can layer on end customer value directly, I mean, when you say service provider, you're actually mean more the tech, but we're talking about the also from the labor side, from people providing.
Correct.
They don't sell software or technology really. They're selling themselves, and they leverage the technology to get sell their own services into the client.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason we're in business, right? IBM, for example, can sell you licenses all day long, but the support model doesn't work for what I'll just say is that smaller community. And unless you're, we'll call it Fortune 100 or 500, easy example, like that's who IBM's going to go after. Everybody else, yeah, I'll say the license makes some money, but that's providing a path for us to create a solution and an organization and a business model that we can then go and support that, as well as still pay the partner at the end of the day.
All right. One more question from the, we've actually been answering a few of them. One was like, what is a good vendor to support a service partner? We actually answered that through that question. So hopefully whoever asked that question had a good answer. Similarly, though, like question from Jeff again, what's the most effective way to train and enable via a master agent? So this is actually more for you, Patrick. So when you are taking on a new vendor, I mean, you guys actually have an interesting model where you took on customer success as well, which is, I think, not that common in master agency. I talked to a lot of disties who are going, they should start doing that. It makes sense. So how do you structure your time so that you're dealing with, I don't know, how many dozens of vendors to get trained up on this so you can provide success and support?
No, that's a great question. I mean, it's part of the onboarding too, is for us to understand who you are, what you specialize in, and where your needs are, and then design a training strategy for you. So we're in the process of connecting our partners with training resources that our suppliers have, especially the ones that they are interested in. Telarus ourselves also has different virtual and in the case of today in Austin, Texas, we actually have a 3-day contact center training bootcamp with Brandon Knight, our VP of business development over CCAS. And so whether it's customizing a training for you or bringing a Telarus-led training that they can get a hold of, honestly, the best way to get trained is to have a quick conversation with the client and bring us in and let us help you sell a deal. I don't think there's any better education than sitting on the phone or sitting in a boardroom and watching a Telarus person come in and close a deal for you. And your first immediate thought is, well, that wasn't that hard. I could have done that had I known the questions to ask, and we see a lot of success with our partners that have been through that, sell with model, that have actually used that as kind of a launching pad into getting into some of the new products.
I mean, this is exactly right. It's like, what I found is it's really a trust issue. So it's not that they think you're a schemer or anything. It's just they don't know you. It's like the lack of knowledge. But the more they can trust you as a reliable partner and then trust themselves and be able to explain it, the more they'll want to take over the sale and actually just drive sales repeatedly. And one of the interesting things that, Michael, you were touching on earlier is, and you've adapted, like vendors that are doing well. It's another question that's in the Q&A. Like, what do you do to be a good channel manager? You have to adapt your company to actually align with the channel, so you're not interfering. You're being a reliable partner to their sale rather than taking the sale for yourself, which is something you talked about as well.
No, you're spot on. And one piece to that, Sunir, is that I tell every channel manager, whether they work for me or I've just been involved with, stop selling your service. If the more you educate the partner about what's happening in the industry, what they should be thinking about, and then ultimately what differentiates you at the end, the better the results will be. I think too many channel managers, or we'll just generically salespeople like that, are all about them and they want the me factor. And what they forget about is there's a lot going on in the industry. And most customers do research on the internet before they've actually spoken to a partner. And so what we have to do is start taking a step back and saying, okay, if we're talking UCaaS or we're talking managed mobility or SD-WAN, the list goes on. Educate what that really means, what the opportunities should look like. And then we can come in with, hey, it's coming from me. Okay, mobile solutions, managed mobility, cool. I get the reference, right? It's the number one thing I think we miss in the partner community, and from a supplier to or a vendor to a partner, is we're all about the me factor, and we just absolutely miss the boat on the more you educate, the better your results will be across the board.
I have one last question and we'll wrap it up on this one. This is actually one that you raised in the preamble before we open this up, Patrick. Billing. This is near and dear to my heart because this is, for me, I believe the actual thing that's been killing the channel for subscriptions the longest is billing is really, really hard. As an MA, you mentioned it, we'll touch on it in the Q&A, so I want to touch on it. So billing from your point of view, these SaaS providers, these cloud offerings, good, bad, ugly, what's the right way to do billing with you guys?
That is a loaded question for me, and we are highly biased. And so
good. I'm biased too.
We believe that the billing should be done by the people that are experts at that product. And we don't want to be the experts at the product. We want to be the trusted relationship. We want to be an enablement, and much like an insurance broker, we don't want to be the underwriter. We want to put you together with the best insurance company to meet your needs. Because what that allows us to do is scale. And this is the one thing about this model where it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. This model will win. Okay, I'll repeat that one more. This model will win because we have no limitations. We can grow to $1 billion tomorrow and maybe have to add 10 headcount, right? Any other place, if you're doing the billing, that means you're doing the invoicing, you're doing the bad debt, you're doing collections, you're doing all of it. And that puts a tangible real world limitation on your growth. So when you get into the broker model and I can bring in AT&T and AT&T will bill it, and I can bring in Microsoft or a Microsoft vendor like a RapidScale, I could bring in Mobile Solutions and Michael's company will bill it. I don't have any bill. All I can do is just keep looking for more customers, and then hire Telarus, because when your account grows, like I've got to hire more account managers, not you. And so as you grow, it really removes the glass ceiling. And that's why so many agents that we just saw maybe 10 years ago, I mean, they're pulling down $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a month in commission. And pretty soon people are going to start to get wise. And this is the thing about the industry. It's a ton of money with no ceiling, but it takes time. And a lot of people don't have the patience to get through the first couple years, or they don't have the trust to let go of the invoicing, because that's the value I've always provided. I'm the invoicer. That means the client calls me. You can still have your client pay AT&T, but call you when there's problems. And that's really the core essence of what the channel is customer still calls you for everything, but you outsource, you build a team of vendors, you build a team of people at a master agent, you build a team of people that are really working on your business every day, doing those key pieces that don't involve the one thing that you need to do, and that's sell and build relationships with customers. That's the only thing we can't do. So everything else is in a box. Your contracts are there, your commission team is there, your marketing team is there, your engineering team, all of the vendors you need, they're all here, but you just need to focus on growing your business and doing it in a way that doesn't cap your growth. And if you invoice people, you're going to cap.
And I'll argue, let me argue one side of that, and again, this is just another perspective. And what Patrick is saying is absolutely right. That's how I think 90% of our channel is going to grow. I think the hiccup, the barrier, the challenge you run into is eventually, if you it, how do I create valuation on something that I don't truly own? And this is the gray area in the market right now is, what's the value of the relationship to knowing that vendors actually invoicing customer directly? So again, no right or wrong, but if you start to think about what's the longevity of my business, what do I really want to do? That becomes a discussion point. And I think what you're going to find is we're going to have a blend. We're never going to go full boat on one of these. It really is going to be a blend. I think if I'm projecting where this goes, we'll continue to invoice from supplier to end customer. The position of today's channel manager, channel partner, will shift to more of a implementation, white glove strategy. And that's the value, the additional layer of value that they're going to create. So they're not going to have to invoice all services, but what they will do is start to enable additional value or invoicing based on the white glove, the implementation, the project management.
No, Michael, I swear to God, I didn't tee you guys up to say all those things, but this is a nice bit of video that I'm going to send to some investors who are like an app bind, because this is exactly what I've been working on for 10 years myself, because I agree with both of you. that ultimately, this is the only thing that could happen, is the software companies, whoever like is actually worried about like, you know, how many servers you spun up or how many emails you sent out, how many projects you have, they figure out their billing. You don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole in the middle. And then in the middle, the value is not selling that one subscription, but it's actually putting together the solution of multiple things, right? That's the value add, is the implementation, the system integrating, the strategy of multiple streams of products. And this is really where channels are going. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
Especially in the
that's
cloud.
what I will send us to. Like,
yeah, especially in the cloud with all these applications. The miracle of the cloud that we see is the fact they talk to other clouds. I mean, we for decades had on-premise solutions and servers to do whatever, a server for SQL and a server for email and a server for a web server, and et cetera, et cetera. And now they all talk, including your firewall, including your security, including your applications. They all talk. And who's the person that's going to bring all those things together, make them talk, make the screen pops happen when the phone call rings, and have your Salesforce pop up and everything else? Like that's the channel community. And we see a lot of people that are integration type focused doing extremely well, because they get to send an invoice for their hours, right? And for their expertise. And then the great leave behind is a Salesforce license and a talk desk license and a license for SD-WAN to make that work, right? And they have all these great infrastructure needs that go in with it. And that residual commission, you know, I mean, I've seen integration partners get out there, not give their time away, but heavily discount so they can win the deal, because they know they're going to get paid additional money on the residual side from all the infrastructure they leave in there. So it's a great way to get real strategic on how you win accounts too. If you're in the channel, you've got extra financial bullets that someone who's just an integrator doesn't have.
100%. And valuations are actually higher on the residuals than they are on the labor contracts. Guys, we're on the hour. I really want to thank you both for having this really wonderful conversation that I hope wasn't scary to those who are like, wow, what is going on in this seriously $1 trillion channel that we're all trying to learn from. You were both very, very eloquent, and I really appreciate you giving us the time today.
It's our pleasure, Samir. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.